Happy 420.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Timmy G's Talking Stuff and sort of legal stuff. Before we even begin, first thing, let me just say happy 420. In full disclosure, today is actually the 12th, but I'm filming this today so that we can get it out on 420. Today we want to talk about living as a cannabis user in non-legal states. Not that you guys don't already know that the fight is far from over, but we want to talk about it. I know without any knocks to people that are living in fully legal states, because that's what we all are striving for. But I do see some people becoming complacent in that. And I just want to reach out to you guys, again, not as a knock, but as a hand reaching out, because you guys can still help us. You guys can still vote nationally for pro cannabis candidates. You can still support organizations like NORML, even after all 50 states in the U.S. have, and territories too, have fully legalized cannabis. We're still going to need organizations like NORML to help drive fair policies. We've come a long way as a nation over the past decade or so. I remember the election night. I forget, I don't even remember which year it was now, but I was waiting and watching one of the news channels, waiting to see who was going to win. And, it popped up on the screen that, who was it? It was Washington State and Colorado that fully legalized recreational cannabis. And I had no idea that that was even on the ballot anywhere. And so my jaw just hit the floor. And, I was really celebrating, not just for you guys, but for the rest of us too, because that was a clear signal shift in momentum. We're winning this fight, and we are going to continue to make victories. We just had a couple victories here in Virginia, and I'll get to that here in a few minutes, but overall, we are going to win the war. In my opinion, they're not turning back this momentum at this point. We're going to win this war. No longer are we going to have to fear persecution for using what is essentially one of the safest possible substances that you could consume on the entire planet. Literally, people have been killed more from water than from cannabis. Cannabis is obviously, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir for the most part through this vlog, but cannabis is literally like catnip for people. Just as catnip is perfectly safe and non-toxic for cats, cannabis is non-toxic and generally safe for people. We could talk about different methods of consumption, eating versus smoking or vaping, or I got into a big argument with this girl who didn't know about dry vaping, and trying to explain why dry vaping was so much safer and healthy than oil vaping. But she got all pissy about that, but I won't go into that here because this isn't the time or place. But, and then, further, we can also argue about can of butter versus, oils and other extracts as a means for cooking, and tinctures, and there's like right now there's like 1,000,001 different ways to consume, and that is awesome. But regardless, we want to stick to the point and talk about life in non-legal states. So, without further ado, let's talk. And before we talk, we're going to celebrate by sparking up, and I hope that I don't lose my train of thought by sparking up. By the way, this is a piece I got from what was it? Happy Blaze box. And I have already dubbed this Junior Belvedere because I've got this big 14-inch beaker that I've dubbed Mr. Belvedere because it's classy and it's big and it's nice. So I've dubbed this the Junior Belvedere because it's much smaller, it's 8 inches, but it's also classy and nice. So let's get into that. Cheers. Ooh, I love having this. I love having the ice in here, man. That is just so perfect. Cool, refreshing bong hits all day long, baby. Cheerios. It was revealed this morning that our governor here in Virginia has finally signed off on decriminalization for small amounts and has legalized our medical THC program. We still haven't gone to full legalization yet for recreational use, and we still don't allow flower for some reason in the medical program, only extracts up to 10 milligrams per dose. But there's no limit on how many doses a patient can take. But regardless, there are baby steps in a baby step state. We are the Commonwealth here. And in a lot of regards, it just sucks. But progress. So I fully intend on trying to sign up for the medical program. I do have legitimate reasons to be using cannabis. One is, like my anxiety, my PSTD, all of that kind of stuff, as well as, I have hypertension. And I know, people have argued with me day and night about, hypertension, you need to exercise, you need to diet, blah, 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 you need to do this and that. And I'm like, yes, that's fine for a long term. But in the short term, when your blood pressure is, 180 over 120, you don't have time to exercise. You got to bring your blood pressure down right away. And nothing brings it down as effectively or as safe as cannabis. Just point blank. I've been using it like that. It brings my blood pressure down 20, 30 points like that. There is nothing better. And on top of that, I enjoy it. And as we talked about already, it's one of the safest possible things that you could possibly consume. Beginning July 1st, as I said, it is also going to be decriminalized for small amounts. What that means is it's still illegal technically, but instead of the threat of jail time and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, no matter how many times you get caught, each time you get caught, they take your stuff, you get a $25 fine, and that's it. No criminal charges. So, that's great for us here in Virginia. And I haven't told many people this, but I actually have a statement that I wrote, what was it, last year or something, that I was holding on to because I wrote it, just in case I did get busted. And basically what the statement was I was going to quickly tell the story of my mother and how cannabis could have potentially saved her life, and how she died taking opiates from the doctors because they wouldn't let her smoke pot. Then, to wrap it up, was going to, in court, publicly pronounce that my life and my well-being is more important than the law. And that is true for anybody out there in a non-legal state. If you don't have medical cannabis in your area, if your doctor's unwilling to prescribe you, if you are in a medical state, whatever, but it helps you, I know, the groups like Normal and stuff aren't going to be able to back me up when I say this for obvious reasons, but screw the law. Your life, your well being is more important than the law. When laws are unjust and oppressive, and in this situation they are definitely unjust and oppressive, it is a righteous act to break those laws. Just the same as in, post Jesus time, Nero came into power and made it illegal for people to be Christians. I'm not a Christian myself, but definitely being told that you can't believe in a certain religion is definitely oppressive. And so, just as it was a righteous act for those early Christians to break those laws, it is a righteous act for to be breaking cannabis laws. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, wait, if you live in a non-legal state, why are you smoking in your videos and, putting yourself out there like that? And point blank, I've been smoking weed for like close to 30 years, something like that, up until within the past couple years, I was pretty much just a simple smoker. I didn't really have much in the way of bongs or, fancy dry vapes. And, it was pretty much just get some weed, pack it up in a bowl and smoke it, maybe smoke a joint or a blunt, but I've lived the vast majority of that time in fear of prosecution. It got to the point that, I resented it. I resent the fact that I've had to be paranoid of the police who were supposed to protect me and protect my neighbors over something that is literally protecting me from my own health problems. And so, I got to the point, I just decided, again, along those same lines, that my life and my well being is more important than the law. So I'm not going to let those laws stop me from doing what I feel I should do. I want to share my love for cannabis with you guys. I want to share just the same as I like to share my love for horror movies and mystery boxes with you guys. And so I'm not going to let a fear of prosecution step between me and that. And if, the law wants to come get me before July 1st, fuck them. I mean, they probably won't anyway, because most of the prosecutors in Virginia now have started refusing to try marijuana cases. The sheriff's departments and the police unions have been fighting that and trying to force them to prosecute those cases, because the police departments want to make those quotas, and the prosecutors want to clear their docket and make room for more cases. But that fear is just about over for us here in Virginia. Within the next couple years, it'll probably be fully legalized on for recreational use. But there's still a lot of people in a lot of states that don't have so much as a medical program, and still have harsh penalties for simple possession charges. And I hate to kind of harsh the celebratory buzz around, celebrating 420, the celebrating, but it's the truth. And we've got to remember our brothers and sisters still in the struggle. I remember going back, all the way back to the year 2000. And to be fair, I was put on house arrest because I stole some stuff. And, that was fair. I was put on probation and put on house arrest after I stole some stuff and, went to court and everything. And that was fair. I deserved that sentence. But the thing was that they put me on 8 months of house arrest with the threat of jail time over my head. And for smoking some pot, when they pissed me dirty, I was given a year and 4 months in prison. And literally, the guy that went in right before me I'm going to spare you the details because it was really gross, but they were trying this guy for molesting a 10-year-old girl. in from a child daycare center, no less. From a child daycare center. He was working at the place, and he touched one of the kids. They gave him 4 months in jail. 4 months in jail for that. But for smoking a little bit of pot, I'm going to prison for, what basically turned into 13 and a half months. I'm not going to cry about that. That's long history now, and I'm fully off of probation. I've got my voting rights restored, everything. So, as far as that stuff goes, I'm good, But it's the point, and that type of mentality toward harsh sentencing is far from being a thing that was 20 years ago. It was just a couple months ago or so that a local news outlet, WHSV, ran an article about a man in West Virginia who had some weed mailed to him. I think he had it mailed to him from California. And they gave him 7.5 years in prison. A couple of days later, they posted an article about a woman that was high on methamphetamines and left her infant child in the bathtub. I assume it was one of those little small baths, but still left them unattended, and the child ended up drowning itself. They gave her 2 years. I'm not going to come down harsh on the mother because it's methamphetamines is a hell of a drug. I was strung out for a time myself on methamphetamines, and I'm very sympathetic to people that are strung out on the hard drugs. But it's the justice system that I'm pointing out the problems of, because a mother's negligence is worthy of 2 years in prison, but a man getting some pot in the mail is worthy of 7.5 years? It's beyond ridiculous. That's more than 3 times the time for weed. I remember seeing, I can't remember if it was on Vice or John Oliver somewhere, was it last year sometime, I think, and they were talking about a man that was serving 75 years in federal prison over like a half ounce of weed. It was just like ridiculous. Or was it 50 years? Because there was another guy who was there for possession of cocaine that had the other sentence, and so I might be getting those two mixed up. But regardless, it was either 50 or 75 years. That is just insane. Again, I know I'm preaching to the choir for the most part here. I'm sure there might be 1 or 2 people watching this that are, against the whole cannabis movement or whatever. But, to those guys, thanks for watching and thanks for taking the time to hear what I have to say. But I think it's fair to say that that's an insane sentence. And even if that sentence was made 10, 20 years ago, god damn, it should be commuted, I mean, it's like with the death penalty that, how DNA evidence has cleared people that had already been put to death, Well, in this case, it doesn't even matter if they're guilty. If it's for possessing weed, let them the fuck out. It's legal in like 1/5, it's legal for recreational use now in like 1/5 of the country, and like half of the country has medicinal. What the fuck? But it's still scheduled as a class 1 next to like heroin and cocaine. Our whole federal to the state system over cannabis is just the biggest nightmare, ridiculous thing that, you'll ever come across. it's I mean, I'm probably going to give myself a stroke and an aneurysm just thinking about it, you know? But I do want to say that, you know, I'm not encouraging. As a matter of fact, I would probably discourage people in non legal states from doing what I'm doing, for sitting here on camera, smoking, handling, and getting blazed up for the general public to see. You know, like I said, this is just my form of civil disobedience because, once again, my life is more important than the law, and screw the law. But I digress. You know, so what kind of things can you do to support the movement? Well, if you're in a non-legal state, you know, you can vote for local politicians and candidates that are pro cannabis. I believe that Normal has a chapter in virtually every state and territory in the country. So, you know, consult with your state's Normal advocacy group, and, you know, check the candidates' records on cannabis. You know, and those in non-legal states and legal states alike at the national level can vote for pro-cannabis candidates and vote for pro-cannabis policies. You know, write your congressman, write your senators, you know, write whoever your representation is and tell them support cannabis reform, support criminal justice reform as well. And all of that really kind of ties in together because, again, you know, we've got people serving multiple years for cannabis. 2 days is too long for a cannabis sentence, really. You got these same politicians who sit out there and talk about how bad cannabis is and how cannabis is a gateway drug, all of this stuff that we've debunked years and years ago, and go home. What's the first thing half of them do when they get home is open up a beer or drink a bottle of liquor. You know, one of literally only a couple drugs in the entire planet that can literally kill you from withdrawals. On the other hand, cannabis, I don't think that there's really been any definitive proof one way or the other that cannabis does or doesn't have physically addictive properties, but it doesn't matter because cannabis stays in your fatty tissues too long. It gradually works itself out of your system, and so by the time it finishes working its way out of your system, it's like weaning yourself off of any other drug. You know, it's just that if you stop smoking weed, it naturally weans out of your system on its own. So you can't possibly become physically addicted to cannabis. And but I definitely, and I'm getting way off a track here, I definitely encourage you, like I said, to vote pro-cannabis candidates and support Normal. I can't stress that enough. Normal has got their boots on the ground and are fighting the good fight. You know, they're pushing the policy, they're pushing the candidates, and now that we have actual cannabis lobbies, they're pushing more and more politicians across the nation. And like I said, we're winning the fight, we are winning the war. And before I continue, let's have a little halftime heat because it is 420. Anyway, well, I mean, even though it's like technically not 420 yet, you're seeing this on 420, and it is 420 month. So, Honey Nut Cheerios. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to hit this thing a couple more times before the ice all melts. I like my cold. I like my cold bong hits. Yes, I do, Junior Belvedere. sha sha sha. Shaka Khan. So one other thing I want to say is here in Virginia when they were proposing decriminalization, you know, the ACLU came out against decriminalization, arguing, you know, that it didn't go far enough. And, you know, I agree with them. The problem is that in Virginia, everything is so slow. The good old boys system that has run this state for so long is so slow at coming around to modern times, you know. And I'll give you an example of that. In my hometown of Stanton, like they won't let people. A lot of people can't paint their house. Like they'll own a house, or they'll be renting a house, and the landlord will approve of them painting the house, but the city won't let them do it because it's a historic district. You know, my mom used to, as a matter of fact, was the first woman in Stanton's history to serve as assistant director at the Chamber of Commerce. And they fought tooth and nail to get the a skate park built in at Gypsy Hill Park. It never did happen while she was there. But it took like 20 years, something like that, of petitions to finally get Stanton to build a skate park for the damn kids, because the city doesn't want to do anything for the kids. They're like, you know, oh well, the kids got Skate Town, you know, and that's it, you know. The kids are, you know, take their skateboards out to the parking lots or out on the streets or, you know, wherever, and then here comes the law, and now the kids are in trouble because they're up to no good for riding the damn skateboards, you know. That's the kind of mentality that has run Virginia for seemingly forever. And my mom used to call them the old fuddy-duddies. And that does pretty much sum it up. But the point here is that, you know, sometimes we have to take baby steps and take what we can get as we continue to fight for better things. So, you know, let's just try not to fight amongst ourselves so much that we take our eyes off of the actual prize. And the real prize here is more than just legalizing weed. It is legalizing life. Any of you that are watching my channel, or watch my channel regularly, I should say, are probably pro-cannabis. And so, you know, I'm preaching to the choir kind of, but, you know, cannabis saves lives. It really does. In the case of people dealing with chronic pain that are forced to take opiates, my mother was one of those cases. You know, if she had have been allowed to use her pot to help with her hypertension, and it helped her as much as it helped me, but, you know, then the pain clinic came in and said, well, no, if you continue smoking pot, we're going to cut you off. And at that time, we couldn't get high CBD strains of cannabis, so, you know, the whole thing was kind of off. And I still feel like if she had been allowed her weed, she would have never have been so spaced out on pain pills that she ended up falling out of the bed the way she did to bang up her shoulder, which means that she would have never ended up in the surgery room for her shoulder to put her on extra fucking pain medicine that ended up killing her, you know? Sorry, I got a little too real there. This fight is beyond real. And the important thing is, like I said, that, you know, even though we are winning this fight and on track to win the war, don't become complacent. Please don't let yourself get complacent. because the minute we give up and think that this is as good as it can get, it's going to all fall apart. And we have a responsibility to each other as a community, as a country, to make sure that the marijuana policies that have plagued us since 1927 don't continue. Or was it 37? It was 27 or 37. I can't remember exactly when the Stamp Act happened, but it was one of those dates. So I'm, about too stoned to really think of anything that, I'm forgetting. And again, I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but I just felt like I should post this and get it out there and let us talk about it. What do you got to say? Type. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. If you want, tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right, correct any misinformation I might have put out there. I think I got everything pretty much right. But troll me if you want, call me a great big fat ass stoner, and you wouldn't be wrong. So, feel free. Because that's what this is all about anyway, right? Being free. So, before we go, let's hit this a couple more times, and because I got a little bit too real there for a minute and almost lost it. So let's end on a high note. Get it? Get it? High note. And well, the fire's still burning, so yeah, you can't overdose, but I think I'm about ready to die on coughing here. Alright, so in the days and weeks ahead, we're going to get back to unboxing. We got our, as a matter of fact, we got the weed box coming in a couple days, which will probably get filmed and uploaded before this video is uploaded. And as well, Fright Crate ought to be coming soon. I have no idea if that one's going to get here before this goes up or not. But I doubt that we'll get our Don't Eat the Gum box before this goes up. So, oh, and I completely forgot, we've got Hemper coming this month too. So stick around for all that and more. And thank you all once again for tuning in. If you like this, comment, subscribe, and we'll stay smoking in the next one. You bet on that shit. Yeah, that's butter. That's much butter. That's butter. Hey, yo, man. I see you got your shoes on today. Maybe God is just a spider. Ooh, I can already see the ice dripping into the water. Drip, drip, drippy, drip. So Whoa,
I'm not reading that crap. Summarize it in one word.
I hate to kind of harsh it naturally weans you out of what would be the needed consumption in order to receive a fatal dose of. Now these are what's going to kill me.